Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Metzia, daf Ayin Aleph. We're going to begin on Ayin Aleph, Amud Aleph, about 10 lines from the top. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi, Bore, come and see, Samyes Einehem Shel Malvi Baribas, how there is such apathy and indifference when it comes to an individual who charges interest. That Adam Kari L'Chaver Rasha, if a person calls his friend of Rasha, Yard Imul Chayev, he's going to go into his livelihood. In other words, he's going to do everything in his power to be able to show that it's absolutely not true and it's a complete lie. So that's how it's understood. Rashi says, Ki'ilu hikahu, it's like you hit him. Ki'ilu balu hargo, it's like you want to kill him. It's like it's such a terrible accusation to call someone a Rasha. V'anishamati, says Rashi, Rashai leridu b'teich nasa. You can actually go into his business. Because he called you a Rasha, you can go and attack into his very parnasa. So Rashi says that's a hard thing to really understand because the Chamim are not going to allow you to engage in vengeance like this. So it's kind of hard to understand that. Anyway, Ein Rashi, it's a little bit sounds almost like a Tosus, but nonetheless, a person who is indifferent when it comes to ribis, as we'll see in a second, because when it comes to being called a Rasha, you're going to stand up for yourself. However, Haim, these Malbi ribis Mavian Eidim, they bring witnesses. V'lav or a scribe, v'kulmus and a pen, u'diyai and ink, and kaisin v'chaismin, and they write and sign Plini's Kafar Belukei Yisrael. So basically, they're writing, you're a Kafar Yisrael because you are engaging in this terrible Isser Deraisa of charging interest. And you don't seem to care that people are that you have a document basically verifying that you're a Rasha. Tanya Shimon Elezer Omer Komi Sheish Lo Mois, and who has money, Umal Ba'isam Shelo Baribas, but you do the right thing and you lend it without charging interest. And you, the plastic says, that your money you should not give as interest. A person should not take bribes. If you do this, then you're not going to basically lose any of your possessions. Things are going to be great for you. We learned Shekol Hamalva, therefore we can make a deduction. Shekol Malva Baribas, if you charge it with interest, then you will lose your possessions. That's what'll end up happening. We see people that are careful not to lend with ribis, and nonetheless they do lose their possessions. So it's not a foolproof plan. So Rabbi Lezer halalu mismaitetin v'oyulin. It's true they may lose their possessions, but they're going to rebound and come back up. Halalu mismaitetin v'oyulin. However, these other people will not recover. The pasuk says lo masabit boigdim tachrish kavala rasha sadik mimenu. So this is actually Gemara, a pasuk which is quoted in Megillah, that it says that the rasha can be swallowed up by the tzaddik, the kavalo rasha tzaddik menu, that he's being swallowed up. So Amar Rav Huna tzaddik menu boileya, tzaddik gomer in a boileya. It depends. If you're merely a tzaddik, then the rasha has power over you, has control over you. Alternatively, it's the Gemara in Megillah says if he's in a good time, he's successful, then you should stay away from the rasha, but because he can swallow you up, maybe even as a tzaddik gomer. But this diak is that it's only a tzaddik mimenu. It's only that a tzaddik can be swallowed up, but not a tzaddik gomer. Tanya Rabbi Yomer says Rashi that even though he ends up falling, he'll come back. They nibble oil, but he's not going to be swallowed up forever. It's just a temporary problem. Tanya Rabbi Yomer Gert Tzedek Amar Indian Mechira. When we're talking about a Gert Tzedek in our Mishnah regarding Mechira, selling, the Gert Hashuv Ha'amru in ribis, ger tashav, when regarding to the dinim of charging them interest, en yodea mahu. I don't know what the din is. So, ger tzedek ha'amru in mechira. What is that referring to? The pasuk says, "V'chiyam uchachi chimach." If you have your brother who is poor among you, v'nimchalach, and you sell him, lo lecha el lager, shenem lager. It says that it's to a convert. V'lo ger tzedek. Maybe he's talking about he's being sold to not just a ger, but even a ger tasha. Shenemar, ger tasha mishpachas ger. Zeh hanachri. That's even when he was sold to a nachri. Kishu aimer ola eker zeh hanimcha avodas chachavim atzmai. Someone who's sold to avodas chachavim itself. And we saw in the Gemara in Kedushin that this is someone who actually is engaged in shvius, that as a punishment he'll end up being sold to an oibes kachavim, or even engaging in idol worship himself. It says Rashi, lachsayv eitzim l'shamayim. He's going to have to cut wood or cut wood or draw water for the sake of oibes kachavim. V'lo el lager. So when it says v'lo lecha, it's only referring to a ger. Shenemar ger. Lememra the ger kani eved ivri, which is mashma. This is talking about an eved ivri who could be acquired. He can apparently be acquired by a ger. A ger is able to acquire him. Or minhi ein hager niknim eved ivri. It says beferish, and a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. And also, as a side point, in isha the ger kainin eved ivri. So ger lo nikna be'eved ivri. A ger cannot be nikna to an eved ivri. B'shavu mishpachto be'inan. He has to return to his house baleka, and he's not considered to be returning to his house because he doesn't. It's not considered like he has yichus. So therefore, a ger cannot acquire. A ger cannot go back. So therefore, again, that's why a ger cannot be a slave. He cannot be acquired as an eved ivri, because he can. It's only, the pasuk says, only person who can be an eved ivri is v'shabal mishpachtai, someone who will come back to his family. But since he's a ger, he doesn't go back to his family. Vein ish of a ger kainin eved ivri, and also a ger and an eved, a ger and an isha, a woman, cannot acquire an eved ivri. Why? Isha lavar chara. Because for a woman to acquire an eved ivri, it's not proper. As Rashi shehu misyachnima, because there's a chance you may have yichud with her, and obviously that could become quite problematic. Ger nami, why can a ger not acquire a eved ivri? Gemiri de mikni kani de lo mikni loy kani, because it goes both ways. Since a ger cannot become an eved ivri, because there's a chisaron of v'shavu mishpachtoi, so therefore he also cannot acquire an eved ivri. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Einu kaina, he cannot be kaina an eved ivri v'dinu ki Yisrael, but it means that he has the same din like a Yisrael. But kaina v'dinu kanachri, he actually could be kaina, but he has the dinim of a nachri. Desanya hanirtza, when it comes to an eved ivri, after who was sold to Yisrael, and or for that matter, v'nimchar l'nachri, who's sold to a non-Jew, enu oived l'osaben l'osabas. The din is that he does not serve his children. So an eved ivri goes free, and that's it. It's not like a yerusha when it comes to an eved ivri, even if it's a nirtza or a nimchar l'nachri. Okay. Fine, because the pasuk is shnemer b'avadol oilam. It says when it comes to the nirtza that you'll serve him until yovel oilam, not your child. V'nimcha l'nachri, v'nimcha l'nachri, yalfina b'kedushin v'chishavim kainehu v'loi im yorshi kainehu. So the yorshim aren't able to be kaina the eved ivri, even though he was sold to a nachri. Omer Mar ve'ein ish of a ger kainin eved ivri. So he said a woman and a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. So name of the Rav Shimon Gamliel, asani isha kaina es hashvachis. A woman could acquire female slaves. They enu kaina es avadim, as you can understand, they can't acquire avadim because of the concern of of yichud. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer Av Kaines Avadim. No, a woman could even acquire an evet, and over here it says Isha, and a field tamer of Shimon Gamliel Volokasha Kan be'evid Ivri Kan be'evid Kanaini. Evid Ivri Saniwa. So when it comes to an Evid Ivri, maybe that is allowed because they're modest. Evid Kanani Paritz law. Now an Evid Kanani is a Paritz, and therefore we don't want her to acquire an Evid Kanani. El Hadatani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said, our Malta, if you have a woman who is a widow, says Rashi, Saniya, Muksak Sanuhu, Beineha, She'imi Kalkal Yachad, Lo Yispoyer Hu Galos Adavar Hilkach Asalak Noisai. Actually, it's interesting. I read it improperly. Saniya, so it says that he's going to be modest to her. Muksak Sanuhu Beineha, so he's going to be like proper. Shimi Kalkalu Yachad, Lo Yispoyer Hu Galos Adavar. He's not going to reveal what he does with her, and therefore, because of that, it's then she cannot marry him. She cannot acquire him. So by an Eved Ivri Pumfikert, she cannot acquire an Eved Ivri because of that. But an Eved, when it comes to an Eved Kanaini, he's a Paritz. V'yeraeh he will hafgir loas atzmoi. So she's going to be afraid that if she does anything with him, that it's going to end up becoming a horrible thing. She's going to spill the beans and tell everyone about this relationship. So because, interestingly enough, Pumfakert, by an Evan Kanaini, because he's such a paritz, she's like disgusted by him. She's not going to be interested in being with him, and therefore it's going to be mutter, especially because of his attitude, that she's not going to want to. It's not going to be an issue even if they are miyachid. Interesting. Now, Rav Yosef, our Malta, when it comes to mother, lo to Rabbi Kalba, so she should not raise dogs. Again, Shema Tiskalkalimoy, maybe there may be a form of intimacy there. Vlo Tashri Barbe Rav Ushpiza, and we did not allow the Barbe Rav Ushpiza to be like an attendant of a hotel. Now, Bishloma Barbe Rav Saniwa, I can understand why not Barbe Rav, because they're Sania. And because of Snius, the concern is, again, that this may end up happening. There may be some issue over there. They'll end up being together and keep it as a secret, if we will. El Kalba, when it comes to a dog, Hivan de Misrech ba Mirtasa. When it comes to a dog, to be near Vasloi, that's something which you would be afraid for anyone to know such a thing. So chayra, it shouldn't be an issue. So why would you think that it should be usher? Misrach basra. The truth is, when it comes to an animal, if you just give it a little bit of meat, it will come after you. Amri inchi mishum umsa de shadila the mitzrach. People will say, "Oh, why is it going after her like in a physical way?" It's because of the meat. So the point is that because of the animal, people will just think this animal's very attached to her because she feeds it very fine food, but it could be for different reasons. Therefore, we say it's also for her to raise such animals, such a dog. Ger toishiv harmul inyan ribis mahi. So what is this regarding ger toshav? So the pasuk says v'chimu chachicha, that a person is poor, umata yadu imach, v'chzakta boy, and so you help this person out. Now ger v'toishiv v'chayimach, so you should live by you. Tikach mito neshech v'tarbis, you shouldn't charge interest. Yareis molkecha v'chayachich, and you should fear Hashem, you should live by you. Ramidi. Now it says now it says over here that apparently you could charge interest. That's what the Mishnah says, right? So how do we understand this? So Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Miksiv Al Tikach Itam doesn't say don't take from them ribis mi'itoksiv. It's in a more limited lashon. It's saying Misrael. That's what the pasuk is talking about. So even though it says ger v'saishav, it's not referring to going on them as a ger taishav, but rather it's talking about Yisrael, because it doesn't say mi'itam, because otherwise it would be including multiple different types of people. The fact that it says mi'itai, so that's a mashma. We're only talking about one type of people, which of course is Yisrael, and therefore a ger taishav would be excluded. Question 5. Can a woman acquire an eved? So this is what he says. Ein isha kain eved ivri. A woman cannot acquire an eved ivri. But eved kanaini plugda. An eved kanani is a machlokas. So by an eved ivri she cannot. But by an eved kanaini it is a machlokas. Okay. Weiter. Tanaban. Al tikach mi'ito neshav tarbis, don't charge interest of lata naisalo arev, which is, you could be a co-signer. Apparently a co-signer is allowed, even though it is in a case of lending ribis. So it's interesting that's allowed. So an arev luman, what does that mean, a co-signer? Doesn't mean you're a co-signer for a Jew, so you have a lender and a borrower, or a Jewish, which is a sin. But you as a co-signer, why would that be allowed? These people violate the Isser of Osa Simun, Hamal Bavoy V'Arba Edim. So it includes the co-signer. So we see clearly you cannot co-sign a Yisrael's loan. El wa Nachri. However, you could co-sign for a non-Jew, right? So to a Nachri. So Vikivan, so therefore that's okay. Now Vikivan Didina the Nachri, the Ozil Basar Arva. So when it comes to, and what happened, he's lending to a Jew, a non-Jew lending to a Jew. So it's not a problem. But the problem is that the Nachri will go directly to the co-signer. Ihu nihu dekosh shakumine revisa. So it's like you're collecting, since you're collecting from the Ari first, it's as though that there actually is ribis over here. It says Rashi, why? Arev zeh hilva min hanachri. It's like the co-signer borrowed from the nachri. V'chazil hilvol Yisrael, and then he's going to go and let's look at the Rashi before. Ein toveh el arev. He's going to claim him, right? So ihu nihu dekosh shakumine revisa. So again, so he's taking ribis, because what ends up happening is the blender, who's a non-Jew, is going to collect from the Arab, and the Arab is going to collect from the borrower. So in fact, it's a Jew to a Jew. No, they accepted upon themselves the din of Yisrael, which means, as Rashi says, that first he has to go to the Lova, and therefore it's possible he's never going to end up coming to the Arab anyway. So it's a non-Jew lending to a Yisrael, and that's it. But it's a non-Jew who's the Malva, and therefore it's not a problem. So Ikibul lovely then within Yisrael. What do you mean? If you actually are holding like the din of Yisrael, it's a ribis nami lo lishkol, then there shouldn't be ribis at all. Now they accepted upon that this law will apply, that there is the din that we collect from the Lova before we go to the Arev. However, we don't apply the other Jewish important rule, which is don't charge interest. Which for a Nachri, it's allowed. You can borrow from a Nachri on interest. Okay, weiter. Malve Yisrael. So you have a lender who's Jewish, and he lent Ma'oisav Shel Nachri. He Malve Yisrael Ma'oisav Shel Nachri Medas HaNachri B'chul. Okay, so what exactly does that mean in our Mishnah? It's Tanaban. It means like this: Malve Yisrael Ma'oisav Shel Nachri Medas HaNachri. It says you can lend money with a Nachri's consent. Gavul Medas Yisrael. So, Kate, what does that mean? So Yisrael shaloiva mois min a nachri. You have a Jew that borrowed money from a nachri, beribus. So that's allowed because the lender is a nachri. So that's okay. And Yisrael's the lova, and he has to pay back the non-Jew with interest. Ubekesh ziram lo. He wanted to pay back the nachri. The lova wanted to pay him back. Metzia Yisrael acher encountered this Jew encounters another Jew. V'yirmelo to name li, give me the money. V'ani alocha kader shiata maloi aser. And instead of you giving this money to the nachri, give me the money, and then I'll give it to the nachri afterwards because I need to borrow some money for a little while. So it's a little aser. Says Rashi, v'alpo pi shekiblum ze miyad nachri. Okay, that's that. Fine. V'im himud eitzel nachri mutter. But if, let's say, he first gave the money to the nachri, and then the nachri turns around and gives it to this other yid, then it's allowed. But it can't be that while the borrower, the Jew, gives it to another Jew, that's a problem. V'chein nachri shul, and the other way around. V'chein nachri shul v'mois miyisrael. So this is also allowed. Beribus. A Jew can be a lender and charge the nachri ribis. Ubike shlach ziramo. What happens? So now the nachri, who's the borrower, wants to return it to the malva. Metzia Yisrael acher v'amrlo tenamli, and he says, "Give it to me." Dani elocha kader shiata maloloi mutter. Says, so he says to the akum that, "Give it to me, and then that'll be it." So since he owes it, fine. So it is. So the point is, because since it's money connected to the nachri, so therefore it's considered to be mutter because it's still considered to be a loan with a nachri. However, if the Yisrael received the money first from the nachri, and then the Yisrael turns around and gives it to another Yisrael, then it becomes aser. So just because in this case we're talking about where the akum, the nachri, borrowed the money, so it's allowed, the yid can charge interest. However, if he gives it to another Yisrael, then it becomes it's okay because it's still linked to the nachri. However, once he gives the money to the Yisrael, now the Yisrael can't charge the other Jew interest. Now Bishlam Seifa B'im Hamidu Eitz Yisrael Aser. Now Bishlam Seifa Chomer El Reisha Kivande in Shlichus Nachri. The first case where you have the Yisrael who borrowed the money and he ended up encountering another Yisrael. We know that there's no din of shlichus when it comes to a nachri. So ihu niudika shakul mine revisa. L'chara, again, he's taking ribis. So why do we say in the Reisha that if you gave it back to the nachri, then all of a sudden it's considered to be mutter? L'chara, it shouldn't be allowed. So Rav Huna bar Manayach mishmei Rav Acha bar Rav Hika hacham ha'eskin kagad yarmele hanicham al gabi karka he pater. Put it on the ground and it'll be pater. And therefore it completely disconnects him from the Yisrael. And that's why it's allowed. Yuhachi mile member. So what's the chiddush? Ella Amar Papa kagad shenatav v'nasan biad. He took it and then he gave it back. In other words, he took it from the first person and gave it to the second. So it's talking about, it's mutter because, again, it was given to the nachri, and therefore the connection to the Yisrael is gone, and therefore the nachri can lend it out again. V'yakati melamember. So what's the chiddush? Madhema nachri gufa ki avid adait the Yisrael kugomer v'yoyim kamash mulan. Maybe it's only based on his say-so, thinking maybe it's still the Jewish persons, and therefore kamash mulan, the chiddush is that it's connected to the nachri. We only say that a nachri cannot be involved as a shliach when it comes to din of truma. Otherwise, there is shlichus. The truth is, this statement of Rav Ashi is a total mistake. We cannot say that, the dinim shlichus don't apply to a nachri is dafka by truma, because ma'ishna truma the loik siv atem gam atem b'nei bris av shluchem b'nei b'nei bris, which is the second parak conclusion. So shlichus t'chol Torah kula nami matruma gemrin lo. We learn out, just like truma, there has to be a ben bris. So to be a shliach, so too when it comes to all other matters of shlichus, you have to be a ben bris. So you can't tell me that statement. El Rav Ashi barusihi. Rav Ashi's statement is incorrect, and therefore no. The problem is there is no shlichus l'nachri. Ikadam misamsiyam Rav Ashi ki amrin and shlichus l'nachri hanamil inhu l'didan for us. Of a non l'didhu hamil shliach us to them. Maybe there is. But Rav Ashi barusihi. This is also a mistake. Mashna inhu l'didan daloi. Why them to us not? Dechsev atem gam atem. So anan l'didhu nami. The other way around should be the same din. Ma'atem b'nei bris kaimer. So therefore, elod Rav Ashi barusahi. Again, it's not correct. It's not true. There's no distinction. Not that I can be his shliach or he can be my shliach. No, it doesn't work either way. Okay. Ravina Oimer Nihi granted the shlichus to Nachri Leisley. I understand there's no shlichus. Sechiyah midrabanan islay. Maybe he still has some element of being zeicha. Says Rashi, Shehei Yisrael zeicha l'tzarech nachri, that he can be zeicha for the sake of the nachri. Hilkach hahu Yisrael zeicha le midrabanan b'halva zu mirishain. So again, maybe it's not that it's the din shlichus, that he has some ability to be zeichet. So midraban islay. So midi havi a cotton. It's similar to the din of a cotton. Cotton lavav agav delesle shlichus. A child, there's no din of shlichus because it says also by truma. It says me'es kol ish. So you have to be a man. You have to be an adult, excluding a cotton. A cotton cannot be a shliach. Nonetheless, as we continue Ayin Beis and Aleph, islay zechiyah midrabanan. We still see that there is an element of zechiyah when it comes to a child. So too over here is no difference. Actually, we cannot compare an akum to a cotton. Yisrael asil l'chal shlichus. Akum asil l'chal shlichus. It's true. A cotton right now is not a shliach, but eventually he'll grow up and he'll be shaykh to the din of shlichus. And therefore, that's the reason why there's a zechiyah rabbanon by a cotton. Mashenkin, when it comes to the situation of an akum, because he'll never be shaykh to shlichus, therefore there'll be no zechiyah either. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's maybe see another question. Question 6. Yisrael shaloiva mois baribas min nachri, which is allowed. A Jew borrowed money from a nachri, and now the Yid wants to go and return it. He wants to give it back to the Nachri. Now a second Yid wants to come and take it, because can he do so? So obviously Yisrael can't give another Yisrael ribis. So he says, She'aymer hanachri Yisrael, that the Nachri can say to Yisrael, Rishon hanach, leave it al gabi karka, put it down, vihi pater, then you'll be pater for having given it back to me. And then the second Yid can take it. So then basically what happens is, again, the first Yisrael is disconnected, and therefore the second Yisrael, the first Yisrael is disconnected, and now the second Yisrael borrowing from an akum. Oh, shikablum hanachrim Yisrael harishon yitn l'sheni. Alternatively, that the nachrim is makabel it himself from the Yisrael, and then he gave it to him. He physically took it and gave it. So therefore, since he took it back, that loan was done, and now he's just giving him a different loan, and therefore that is another way around it. TA 27. Yisrael shalom mois me'akum buribis. Probably the same question. Ubikashach zirum. Uva Yisrael v'yermo tanili. Give it to me. V'aniyam alocha kadesh yatamala v'midol etzel nachri he'im muter umadua. So Asr mishum dein shlichus akum. So we say you can't do this. There's no shlichus to akum. El inkein ormule ha'akum hanicham al gabi karka v'hi pater o shenatal v'nasan biyad. So again, if you would say this, and v'hemidu etzel nachri, it says hainu al pitzi voyev he muter madua. So again, if you hold ein shlichus for an akum, so therefore because of that, he would not be able to say this. As he says over here, Ella Reisha Kivanin Shlichas to Nachri. If there's no Shlichas to a Nachri, even knew the Koshakal Mine Rabisa. So how is he connected to the Nachri? So I ended up saying you're right. If there's no Shlichus to a Nachri, but again, you could either put it on the ground, or alternatively, you could go in Shenatav Nostan Biyad. So therefore, in that situation, it disconnects him from the first Jew. Question TB29. We'll see tomorrow. Adkan.